Okay, cool. What chart you want to see? What charts? Solana? You want to see Bitcoin? ETH? I know nobody wants to see ETH. Please, I hope not. But last week I was telling you guys I think the bottom's in on Sol. I was saying how 80 is a huge level, and back above 80 is like a really key spot for Solana to get to. I think last week we were talking. This was Thursday, and I was like, you have this range right here. We've been here since the beginning of February, since the sell-off. This range, we broke down beneath the range, reclaimed the range, and then the retest of this area was your higher low. And that's what I was telling you guys that I thought made sense to bid last week. And if this higher low does hold, it's high confidence that you probably go back to these range highs, which is around like 98, 100. But the important, the like midpoint or like the important level that could be a lower high and maintain bearish structures is like 80 to 83 area. And the reason for that is like on the weekly, if you go to the weekly, you can see like all these daily, not daily, all these weekly closes here. Like the last weekly up candle, this low of this weekly, that's like the resistance. Is like, you call it a breaker technically, but it's essentially because this was the area that a lot of the consolidation happened in this range. A lot of price action happened there. But yeah, this is like a really important level to close over. I would say if the weekly closes through 84, that's like high confidence that the bottom is in here. And I think we're going to retest this range highs and then honestly this next swing high, which is at like 150. So that's what I think. If you were waiting for confirmation, you didn't buy Solana last week, you thought that the low might not be in, you were kind of waiting for a higher conviction spot. Then if you close through this spot, then I think that's an entry you can enter next week after the weekly close. On the daily, it's still kind of the same setup. Like these lows here, this is like the lowest daily close in this range. This is an important level in this range, and we reclaim both, and so we're currently right above it. On lower time frames, if I was looking to bid into a higher low, I probably would try and bid like into 77 to like 75, and my stop would probably be at like 73 down here. So the trade would be like something like this, and I'm probably just targeting the range highs around here. Yeah, like this inval beneath this block, because this, like, I guess you call like medium time frame range and then breakout. You can see that like 75 was a pretty key resistance level that we broke above. And so if we come back in down to retest that, I would say that should be the support that holds, and we should go higher from there. But I think the bottom is in, bro. I mean, I'm super high conviction above this resistance, as I said, but I think the bottom is in. I think there's a ton of people sidelined on Solana right now, and I think the momentum can shift really quickly, especially if stuff on chain is heating up, which is kind of what I'm betting on. So that's my bet. I think Q3 is going to be good for crypto, good for Solana, good for Bitcoin. And we also had the situation where I thought memory was going to top, and memory did top. I wish I would have made fucking money shorting it. I didn't make any money shorting Micron, didn't make any money on puts. I wish I played that trade better from actually taking it. But yeah, those topping out, I think, is honestly a good thing for crypto, because there's a ton of people that have a lot of realized profits there. They made a fuck ton of money in memory and stocks. And if crypto starts to turn bullish, and it develops momentum, then people are going to have a lot of profits that they can allocate towards crypto. So that's what I'm thinking could possibly happen in Q3 and Q4. I think a lot of people are not allocated to crypto currently. So those are my bets right now. And I like Bitcoin and Solana a lot. Bitcoin, I don't know if you guys saw the most recent Saylor news, but Saylor was able to shore up a lot more cash, and he announced some different programs that he's gonna do if he needs to get more cash. I think he has like a certain amount of Bitcoin that he can sell. He said they'll sell up to 1.25B Bitcoin if they really, really need to and run out of cash. But even outside of that, they shored up 25 months of cash, doing all of the, like, for the payments of their preferreds, which is really good. So a lot of people were concerned about Bitcoin breaking through 60K because they thought Saylor was going to have to sell his Bitcoin because they don't have any cash to pay the preferreds, and all these people are panicking. What I said last week is that I thought people were front running that panic and selling ahead of the Saylor actual selling, which I didn't think was going to happen soon. And that ended up being right. Like, the sell pressure in the 60K, we've held this level, which, as I said last week, is a really important spot. Like, it's the fucking previous highs from 2021. Huge support level. And it's also the support of this range that we spent like 90% of 2024 in. So this low here is a really big spot. And this is also the range low from February. So we held 60K, like 58 to 60K. We tested this level a lot. We spent like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, like 10 days down here. And this support is held. So I think similarly to Solana, Bitcoin is going to go back to its range highs. And it's kind of at the same spot where that midpoint could be the lower high that it prints and then sells off. But I think you're going to break above here and go back to break above here like 62K and go back to the range highs, which is like, like 80 to 82. Well, 62K and then 66K, I should say. 66K is like the weekly resistance I was talking about. Equivalent on Sol is like 80 to 84. So that's currently where I'm at with Bitcoin. I was saying, I need to pull up my tweet that I have on it. I was saying, I think the thesis around buying Bitcoin here is the same as it's always been, but we just have a lot of fear around the Sailor situation. And so if the fear on the Sailor situation doesn't pan out, then it's a good spot to be buying. And so this was what I tweeted, I think, a couple weeks ago. Thesis around buying Bitcoin spot here, same as it's always been. Hardest form of money, non-seizable by governments and transferable cross borders instantaneously without hassle, not affected by persistent devaluation of dollars, and long-term store value to preserve wealth. So high level, that's why Bitcoin is important. Like for those reasons, that's why I think it's always going to get some kind of a bid, because it's a lot more usable form of gold, and gold is always traded as an asset to kind of like hedge against the dollar losing its value, which is something that's not going to change anytime soon. So the digital gold thesis took a hit in 2024-25 as gold outperformed during its first real rally since not making a new all-time high since 2011. Believe that it would take confidence to return this thesis. All it would take for confidence to return to the digital gold thesis would be momentum to the upside. And that's true. So gold was essentially flat from 2011 to 2024. Didn't make a new high. And so that's a long time period of accumulation, long time period of sideways. And when it did break out, I think you had a lot of people who were up a lot in Bitcoin, up a lot in other assets like stocks, who took that gold trade and benefited from that trade. But gold is always going to be the oldest, I think, kind of store value hedge against the dollar losing its value. So it made sense that Bitcoin would underperform gold if it's breaking out of a fucking decade-long range, decade-long accumulation. But because Bitcoin is still so much smaller than gold, I still think it's going to be a good trade in that way. I still think it's going to catch up to gold. I want to say Bitcoin's probably at like 1.3 trillion right now, and gold is something like 20 trillion or a lot bigger. So I still think that's a good trade. I think the only thing necessary for it to make sense is more momentum. Like even 6 months ago, Bitcoin was at, or not 6 months, 8 months ago, Bitcoin was at all-time highs. And it feels like that is so long ago because of how much it's underperformed everything else relatively. I said agree with Tolks. Tolks has been crushing it, by the way. If you guys don't follow Tolks, shout out to Tolks. Great account. He's kind of saying the same things about like DXY, which is the dollar strength. Upwards momentum and rates are dragging down gold, but we're near peak hawkishness. Hawkishness meaning that the Fed is more restrictive. Dovishness is when the Fed is like more accommodative. So hawkishness is like the rate hikes being priced into the curve. He thinks we're peak that, which I agree with. Because inflation still subsides, the Strait of Hormuz reopens and gives room for Washington's Fed to cut instead of hiking. Yep. Lots of those people sitting on realized gains from AI stocks will diversify into real estate, cash, long-term store value, which is gold, Bitcoin, both fit into that long-term portfolio. And institutional interest hasn't changed. People like Paul Tudor Jones and others, even with the current negative press from sailors. That's my general thesis. I was bearish before because of the sailor situation, and then 60K didn't break. And when 60K didn't break, it's kind of when I changed my bias, because it looked like the buyers were stepping in there, and I ended up being right so far. So I think it's going to do well in Q3. That's my thoughts on Bitcoin. We will see pretty soon if I'm right, because this shit should rip pretty soon. Everybody who shorted into 58 and 60 is hella offside right now. And I think if this presses back into like 66, a lot of those shorts are going to have to close, and then it should push back up into range highs.